Hello and welcome. My name is Nicole Voldinska and I'm a Technical Program Manager on the Microsoft Sustainability Manager product team. Today we'll be going through an overview and demo of the social and governance functionality in MSM. Let's begin with a quick overview of social and governance, which rounds out MSM as an ESG collection, calculation, and reporting solution. Through this feature, organizations can seamlessly collect their data through either Power Query or data collection, organize and tailor the S&G data structure to their organization's unique needs, calculate S&G metrics, and analyze and report on those metrics. For our demo today, we'll walk through the S&G metric library structure, how to generate facts, how to calculate metrics, and finally, how to analyze the resulting data. Let's get started.
All right, so here we have the social and governance metric library. Currently we're on the social data page. From here we can see this notion called concept groups. Concept groups is how we organize the different subsections of the social and governance regulatory requirements. These are very closely related to ESERs, and so you'll see a lot of them are very much based off of those requirements. So if we jump into characteristics of employees, for example, here we have the underlying concepts. Concepts are really just a reporting metric. And so for example, if we expand this a little bit and go down, here we have something like the number of employees who have left the company by type and by gender. And so if we open up this concept, we can see the type of concept that it is, the unit group that belongs to it, as well as the dimensions that are part of this concept. Now, dimensions are the way that we describe the type of data that's required in order to supplement that particular metric. So in this case, we need the type of separation and then the gender of the employee who left, or the employees in this case who left. Both of these are required dimensions, meaning that they are required in order to meet the complete metric requirements. Now, if we go over to associated facts, currently this is empty, but here we'll see this create multiple facts flow. Create multiple facts is a great way to permutate over all of the dimension options for a particular metric in order to get the necessary facts that need to be filled out. So if we take the example here, we go ahead and press create facts. This will initiate a fact creation job. After a few minutes, we will see that these facts have now been generated. They will generate without the numeric value, the decimal, or the unit, but for the purposes of this demo, I've already gone in and filled out that data. In order to do so, you can click on each fact and fill out the data one by one, or you can export the facts into an Excel and then import them back using Power Query through the Imports tab. Now we'll move into the next stage, which is going to be the calculation of our social and governance metrics.
In order to calculate reporting metrics, we need to first turn on Advanced Calculations, a preview feature that is available in Premium. After turning this on through the application settings, we can navigate to the Models tab. From here, we'll go into Reporting Metrics, where we'll see 4 examples of different calculations that you can perform on concepts and their underlying quantitative facts. We have an example of an average, a percent, a ratio, and a sum. For the purposes of this demo, we'll go through how to calculate an average and how to calculate a percentage. All 4 of these examples are already available with the necessary demo data as part of the latest release, so you're able to run them on your own time as well. First, let's go through calculating an average, a fairly simple scenario. In this example, let's say our incoming concept is the number of training hours by gender and country. Now, our goal is to calculate the average number of training hours by gender. Notice that we're no longer looking at the country, and now the only relevant dimension is gender. Therefore, we're going to use an aggregation node using the average operation on the numeric value field. And we're going to group by 2 things. We're going to group by period, that way all years or periods remain together, such as 2024 or 2025. And then we'll also group by gender, so this will give us the average number of training employees for male, female, etc. Finally, we'll use a report fact node to write the facts back to either an existing concept that's already used in the source node, or you can write back to a new concept, as in this example. You'll notice here that we're actually defining the concept in the profile. This is a net new functionality, but it allows for broader flexibility and reusability of calculation models across different types of metrics, where doing something like calculating an average may be reused. Next, let's take a look at another example. If we go back into the Reporting Metrics tab, let's take a look at how to calculate a percentage. This is a little bit different in 2 senses. First, we have 2 source nodes. We have one concept that's going to be our numerator, and another concept that's going to act as our denominator in this equation. For our numerator, in this example, let's say we have the number of employees that participated in regular performance and career development reviews by gender. And then for our denominator, let's say that we just collected the number of employees by gender. Our end goal is to get the percentage of employees that participated in regular performance and career development reviews by gender. To do this, we're going to first join both of the concepts, allowing us to reference the information in both tables. And so we're going to use what's called a join condition, where we'll join by the gender and by the period. Then we're going to use a calculation node. Calculation nodes allow you to use PowerFX experiences in order to get the exact equation that you're looking for. In this case, what we're doing is we're taking the numerator, dividing by the denominator, and multiplying by 100 to get our percentage in the output unit, which is percent. Finally, as with the previous example, we're going to use a report fact node to write back to the concept that we're choosing. You'll notice, again, as with the previous example, that you can define the input and the output concepts in your profile. This truly increases the reusability opportunities with this. Next, let's take a look at profiles. For the sake of continuity, let's take a look at the calculation profile for calculating an average. First, we'll begin by giving it a name, selecting our module, which in this case will always be reporting metrics, followed by the data type, which is facts, and then we'll choose the calculation model that we created in the previous step, which is called calculate average. Next, we can filter the source data. In our case, we only want to filter down to the very specific example that we went over. So we're filtering for a concept which equals the number of training hours by gender and country, and we only want to look at the completed facts. This avoids taking draft facts into consideration, which may be incomplete or have missing data. Next, we'll define our outputs. This tab will only show up if you've chosen to define your output concept in your profile. Again, if you want to reuse the same model, let's say calculating a percentage or calculating an average, you can create separate calculation profiles for each metric that you're looking to calculate an output for. In our case, we're going to do this for the average number of training hours by gender, as we went over previously, and we'll want these facts to stay in a draft state, just in case we want to send them through some approvals later on in our workflows. We don't have preview results for this type of calculation, but we can still review and finish our calculation profile. After this, we can go through and start a calculation in the same way that you would with any others, by selecting it and then pressing Run Calculation. Once the outputs are ready, they will be available once again in the exact same way that they are for other types of calculations by going into the history and viewing the associated results. You can also go into the concept directly and view the associated facts that have been written back to that concept or concepts. Finally, let's go through the lightweight social and governance Power BI dashboard that's available in MSM. This dashboard allows you to quickly get things like the sum for a particular dimension while also preparing for your regulatory reporting. In this instance, we have our example from the very beginning of our demo today, which was the number of employees who left the company by type and gender. In our case, if you remember, we had 2 required dimensions. This dashboard, as well as this pivot table, will only focus on the 2 required dimensions for visualization purposes. However, if you have any additional optional dimensions, of which you can have up to 4, those will show up as filters on the left-hand side. So let's say, for example, we had the country region dimension as an optional dimension here. That would show up as one of these filters. We also have a filter on the reporting year, so if you wanted to drill down into one or just a few of your reporting years, you could do so here. You can also expand this pivot table to take a look at what those numbers look like in detail, and you can also collapse them back if you're just curious about the cumulative totals for a particular dimension. That brings us to the end of this short video on social and governance and MSM. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.